Okay, good afternoon, everybody. I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. My name is Charles Nyebeze, and I'm the Vice President, Business Development and Commercialization with the Center for Excellence in Mining Innovation. Over the next half an hour or so, we're going to be enjoying to learning from Trevor from Frontier Lithium. And Trevor is going to give us a presentation on the global trend of localizing supply chains. But before I jump into the presentation, I just want to set some context on what will happen over the next couple of minutes. What we'll do is we'll have about a 20-minute presentation followed by questions and answers. Please feel free to enter any of your questions into the chat box where we will be able to have Bora Ugogel read them out, and then Trevor will provide some of those answers. But before we move forward, I want to take this moment to introduce you to our President and CEO, Douglas Morrison, who is going to say a few words. Douglas, go ahead, please, and unmute yourself. There you go.
There you go. Managed to unmute myself. Thank you, Charles. So just want to thank Frontier Lithium, both Trevor Walker and Bora Ugogel, for joining us this afternoon to talk about their project in Northwestern Ontario, and to do so in the context of the supply chain issues that surround the BEV business in Canada and Northern USA. It's important to understand that the critical mineral space, lithium and other metals, is not as simple as starting a mine to produce gold or base metals. Both of those commodity types have well-established supply chain systems for managing the supply of gold into the marketplace, and also for establishing contracts with for base metals. That system is not so well developed for lithium or for the other critical minerals. And so the whole process of going into this business is not just a question of discovering the right deposit in the right place, which I believe Frontier have, and then moving into production. It's a lot more complicated, and Trevor is going to talk about that with us this afternoon. And so without any further ado, I will just hand things over to Trevor to tell us everything we need to know about lithium and the critical minerals supply chains. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Doug. That was a great introduction. Very much in line with the theme of the presentation today. Just want to thank Doug and the team at SEMI for the opportunity to have this presentation. And it's back to what Doug alluded. There's a huge opportunity with regards to the proliferation of battery technology with regards to applying it for transportation. A couple of years ago, it was there weren't too many voices talking about what we believed was coming, but it's great to see that there's so much market support and interest, especially over the last 12 months. So today's presentation, we'll try and do our best to provide some context and background information around the market. And then we'll kind of trickle in where we feel there's clear opportunity for Ontario, Canada, North America to really participate and be a part of this changing landscape with regards to transportation. Just forewarns, there'll be some forward-looking statements. Just a standard disclaimer here is we're a company that's listed both on the TSX Venture and on the OTC in the US, OTCQB. A little bit of background. I came in, so Trevor Walker, President and CEO of Frontier Lithium. I came into the company in 2010. In my soul, there's a historian and a bit of a philosophy interest. I thought lots when I came into the business. I have a background from mining production, so I've always, had a love and passion for the exploration and mining stories that are a part of growing up in Northern Ontario. With me, I came into the company thinking lots around, what will wealth creation be from for generations to come. We've come through the Stone Age and the Bronze Age, and we're really at the beginning of a rare metals age. So essentially, the pixie dust to make the alloys lighter and stronger, and in our case, specifically lithium as the key element required to produce the high energy dense batteries to ultimately push vehicles to the distances that we deal with here in North America. Our goal is to be one of very few in the world that have the ability to produce top quality battery grades lithium chemicals. In particular, we're focused on lithium hydroxide. We have, as we have defined resource and continue to move from resource to development of technology, we've partnered about a year ago with XPS, that of course being a subsidiary of Glencore, based out of Falconbridge here in town. So it's been a key partnership to work on innovative, simple technologies to really look at transforming world-class resource that we have, in particular on our project in Ontario, into top quality lithium chemicals. We have the ability with our company to also break a monopoly, really controlled out of a deposit on the other side of the world in southwestern Australia, controlled by a large Chinese group. We have a luxury here in the province of being proximate to the Great Lakes region, of course, an integral transportation corridor and hub. It's really a heartbeat of manufacturing, and obviously world-class resources close to manufacturing is a huge opportunity. Recently, we put out a PEA for the company. We've on a fully integrated, so that's basically based on building a mine, a mill, and downstream chemical plant to be located in the Great Lakes region. It's really based on the metrics we've used. It's just shy of $1 billion US dollar project. That's post-tax NPV. And touched upon, the huge opportunity that we have here in our area, just being such rich in resources and the expertise on applying good old Northern know-how to what has worked to this lithium space. The company quickly is about a $200 million market capitalization. We're trading again on the TSX Venture, OTCQB. We are just in the midst of financing right now to advance our test work into ultimately supporting a pre-feasibility study that we would expect to have done within the next 12 months. The company has been focused on lithium since 2011. We really have the mantra here, science first, business second. So it's really imperative, despite it being kind of a new age business and something different, what does correlate quite nicely to what's worked in mining in the past is really understand the resource and where it could fit into the world. So that's really been the main focus for us. To move along here to the market, it's really important for us to set the stage in the presentation. Governments around the world, jurisdictions really started to think a lot about finding more lithium when lithium ion was successfully used commercially by both Sony and Panasonic in the 90s, of course, for portable electronics. That technology has really been a key to changing lives and how we work, where we work, and increased efficiencies quite drastically. So with time comes advancements and lowering of costs, and now, of course, we're seeing the technology being used successfully in mobility for transportation, and that's just huge, very, very significant for the world, and we think really significant for our jurisdiction here. A little bit on where does lithium come from. Essentially, historically speaking, that's always the best place to start. Two sources that have proven to be commercially viable. Half the world's lithium comes from the lithium triangle, and that's really an area down in the Andes in South America between Chile, Argentina, and Bolivia. Most of the production has been based out of Chile, in particular the Atacama Desert. So a couple of multinationals, Albemarle, SQM, operates and really deliver to the market roughly half of the world's lithium. The other half traditionally came out of one mine out of southwestern Australia, and that being a hard rock deposit, very similar to what we are working on here in Ontario. The mineral of choice, which carries the highest lithia content, is called spodumene. So spodumene and these brines in the Atacama, again, the brines, they are really aquifers at high elevation in the Atacama, whereby the brine solution through various wells are pumped into very large holding ponds. The retention time in those holding ponds roughly 18 to 24 months to then produce a pre-concentrate that then can be processed. So therein lies a major difference between that type of source and hard rock, like what we're accustomed to in Canada and most of North America, is that this mineral spodumene has, where brines are dealing with 500 to 800 parts per million, we're dealing in percents in hard rock. So it's much higher concentration. Of course, doesn't have typically doesn't have the volume or size, but in our case, we are fortunate to be working on a really high grade deposit. So these two sources essentially supply the world's demand. Of course, typical history based on pharmaceuticals and now other applications, both for some of the best glass in the world requires lithium. So most people don't know it, but the lithium in people's phones is actually higher in the glass content than in the battery content. And of course now with regards to batteries. So I'm already pushed for time here. So I'm going to speed things up a little bit. Essentially, the annual growth rate across the board is in around 35% for lithium material supply. EV sales are increasing this year, an estimated 45%. There's about 3.5 million vehicles sold globally in 2020, electric vehicles. The penetration rate is expected to increase by a factor of 3 from now until 2025. So these numbers are really staggering. It's not going to be easy. There's been massive investment downstream, and the reality is the market or the industry as a whole has lagged in investment on the upstream or supply side. If we take all of the hard rock deposits that are known right now based on various feasibility studies that are out, if we put them all together, there's really only about 250,000 tons of lithium carbonate equivalent. So a really far cry for what North America alone is requiring in the very near future. The European market traditionally has done poorly in the last 100 years with regards to resource and mining and extraction industry. Australia has stepped up in the last few years to increase output beyond the Greenbushes deposit to others, but the Australians continue to struggle with regards to quality. Most of the resources really are shipped to China for downstream conversion into lithium chemicals. So obviously the auto EV is driving the growth. That is why the market is turning on as we speak. Range anxiety has really been a concern for the last 10 years for consumers regarding EVs. The anxiety is disappearing. The technology is seeing, huge, significant cost reductions on a yearly basis, around 13% since 2010. That really is in step with just advancements, mostly on the cathodes on batteries. We have always had a view that both in Europe and more so in North America, the manufacturers and ultimate consumers are going to require a high nickel cathode. High nickel cathode chemistries essentially provide the most energy dense batteries. So essentially the batteries that can take your car in the future the furthest. So from an early stage, we really focused on looking at lithium hydroxide for our company as a chemical of choice that should be primarily produced from our resource here in Ontario, for the mere fact that that hydroxide is starting to take more market share, and again to produce the required to produce the best batteries. We're seeing batteries now on the 100 kilowatt hour size extend out to 500 kilometers, and we're seeing advancements still. So we don't think that it's going to be too far where we can comfortably make it virtually to Toronto and back when leaving Sudbury here in the summer months. So lithium is the element that is essential in the battery for lithium ion technology. Lithium hydroxide is required for the highest nickel component. There's a supply deficit built into the numbers. 2023 is really where the pinch point starts to happen. Currently, 83% of the world's lithium hydroxide comes out of China. There's huge advantage for hard rock deposits like what we are working on here in Ontario. The brines that I referenced earlier from the Atacama have to produce carbonate first and produce hydroxide from converting the carbonate for an extra additional $2,000 a ton cost. So the all-in costs for hydroxide right now, the market, that value of it is around $13,000 a ton, and the cost is about $4,000 to $5,000 for spodumene with a couple $1,000 ton advantage. So therein lies the opportunity. We can't stress enough the old mining world of rule of thumb: grade is king. High quality is paramount. As much as it's mining, it's very much also a chemicals business. If you can produce from a high quality, high grade asset with low impurities, you have the best chance to produce premium chemicals for the market. The luxury we have at Frontier Lithium is we have got 4 discoveries on a project located in northwestern Ontario with the 2 of the highest grade deposits in North America. Benchmark Minerals refers to a global battery arms race that has just begun. There's been $65 billion committed in 2020 for downstream build out of production for the chemical processing to produce both anodes and cathodes of batteries, and also the cells themselves. That's a huge, huge opportunity. Essentially, the capacity at 3.1 terawatt capacity currently being rolled out around the world. That's equivalent When we look at a premium Tesla, for example, with a 100 kilowatt battery, it's equivalent to 31 million vehicles that can be produced a year. That capacity is being built as we speak. If we look at kind of a mid-range vehicle, that would go up to about 51 million vehicles a year. So this is really, really significant, the investment that's taking place. You know, we look at an example, we all talk about supply chains, and for years, you know, we've mined it and shipped it, and this is the opportunity for Canadians. We take an example of Brazil right now. There's a Brazilian asset that's now controlled out of Asia, whereby the concentrates from Brazil will be shipped all the way into the Asian, to China for conversion to produce the chemicals, to then be shipped to either Japan or Korea, and then ultimately end up being shipped to the European market. That really is no logic there. It makes no sense. Therein lies an opportunity for us in North America, that we've got the resources, we've got the market, we've got the know-how. Not only can we support local supply chains, but we can do it at a cheaper price. So therein lies the theme of the presentation, that this opportunity is in front of us. Policies are coming into place. We've got to put policies into action. China, it leads the world production right now, and this whole transition is an opportunity really to get off of the bottle of China and do it at a cheaper price, at a higher quality for our own markets in our own backyard. I will skip ahead roughly, you know, on our, only have a few minutes left with regards to you know, looking at quantities, essentially taking a standard range vehicle. There's about 60 kilograms of lithium carbonate equivalent in the battery for that vehicle. I ran a quick number here just before the presentation. To produce that would come from roughly 2 tons of ore. And in our case, for what the company has looked at in our PEA, that would produce roughly 335,000 vehicles a year just from our project alone, based on the scale that we've looked at for the typical size of both mining and downstream chemical conversion plant. So it's significant, the market, and we can't stress enough that you know, we have a golden opportunity, but time for action is now. You could imagine that jurisdictions around the world are vying for the opportunity to manufacture and produce electric vehicles. But again, the golden opportunity we have in the Great Lakes region, and in our case here in Ontario, with, you know, high quality lithium in our case, of course, notwithstanding the nickel here based out of the Sudbury camp, and cobalt byproduct, etc. So our advice has been very simple to the government: work with what you got, support the resource side of the spectrum, support the OEMs, and the rest will be filled in. The reality in our view is we do not expect the resources to be shipped around the world. It's those jurisdictions with resources such as what we have in Ontario are going to be the real winners. But Ontario has, the province, the government really do need to get moving. The Europeans are a little bit ahead of North America right now. In the last 6 months, $5 billion is committed to Ontario OEMs with government support both out of Ontario and Ottawa. The critical collaboration, the critical minerals collaboration between the United States and Canada is in place. We're feeling some environmental pushback from some of the potential sources in the US. So that's a golden opportunity for Canada with our cousins to the south, and work very closely to make sure that this is really a North America build. So policies are being put into place. We have the ability here to be low cost. Ontario in particular has one of the cleanest grids in the world. It's 96% zero carbon electricity source. We are a very responsible jurisdiction that continues to make improvements with regards to environmental, social governance. So the timing is perfect, where we now have our historical tradition of strong mining with technology coming together. So the opportunity really is not in mining and shipping it. It's really about going downstream with our resources in our jurisdiction to produce the chemicals required for what we're seeing the OEMs wanting to do in Southern Ontario and in the Northern US. So the wealth is really in that added value. So government really needs to focus on supporting that and making sure that our resources don't go to foreign jurisdictions. The business is complicated. You know, there's 30 steps involved with regards to producing quality lithium chemicals. It's not about putting the rock in the box and shipping it. It's really intricate. There's a lot of room for improvement from the historical flow sheets that we've seen come out of China. And that is exactly what our partner in XPS here in Falconbridge and ourselves are working on right now. There's a mini pilot plant that's operating as we speak in Falconbridge that's taking premium concentrates that we've produced from our resource to produce lithium hydroxide. Based on our timeline on where we're at in this level of feasibility, with an accelerated plan, we could see the potential to start putting shovels in the ground in our project at the earliest in 2024. We feel that's very much in line with supply deficits. Coming to a conclusion here, with regards to the process that we're working on, we're essentially removing some byproduct that really has no value and is very difficult to deal with. So we've taken good old Northern know-how with regards to water treatment and applied it to leach solutions that are elevated in lithium. It's worked very successfully at a bench scale. Patents, there's a patent pending. We'll be finalizing IP jurisdictions this spring. Then we can be a little more forthcoming, but the potential for recycling reagents and acid that we generate from the Sudbury camp, from the 2 acid plants. So is very high. So very cognizant of using byproducts as a result of nickel production here in town. So huge opportunity, keep things simple, and keep things as green and clean as we can. And that's the opportunity that we have to do things right with regards to the lithium market. Recently, so we've managed to leverage our resources to have some great experience, a couple in particular that are on a board of directors. Ernie Marcotte, a lot of experience with Falconbridge and Inco in the past. John Kelly, a former vice president of Inco. Lots of gray hair and a lot of experience. The latest addition was Steve Letwin, who is president and CEO of IAMGOLD. He's really the guy that was instrumental in getting the Cote project just up the highway off the ground. We continue to add to our team. We're very fortunate to leverage a great resource to attract some of the world's best, in particular, Dr. Nijin Cao, who spent years working for Tianqi, a global multinational that operates out of China with regards to lithium chemicals production. He's a Chinese-Canadian, resides in Montreal, and has just started and has just brought a wealth of experience to our team with XPS. We've managed to bring other lithium-specific experience from a former producing mine in Manitoba and from the mine I referenced earlier from Australia. So in conclusion, we have about 30 million tons between 2 deposits. It's located north of Red Lake. The upside is just huge. The deposits remain open. There's 2 other discoveries that are significant. Currently, there's a diamond drill on the project conducting infill drilling on what we call the Spark deposit for the purpose of feasibility, pre-feasibility that we're working on. Again, PEA recently, it's essentially $1 billion project with the ability to scale that. We're very conservative by nature, and we see huge room for improvements. We have not utilized the technology that XPS and ourselves are working on for the asset. That will be supported by the mini pilot that's currently running in Falconbridge. So the upside is huge. The opportunity is now. We are encouraging the both provincial and federal governments to take policy into action. You know, based on that kind of global efforts around the world, and investment of $65 billion to date here outside of the OEMs. You know, we've seen $6 billion committed by OEMs and both the province and the federal government in Ontario. To date, we've seen a $10 million investment from the province through the Northern Ontario Heritage Fund with regards to first cobalt on potential processing in the cobalt camp for cobalt chemicals. So it is, the time is now. So we are working close and so making sure that our story is being told and governments understand the lack of investment and the absolute requirement to get focused on how to differentiate from Chinese monopoly, and that is through the high quality resource and the manufacturing capabilities down south. So that's it in conclusion. I apologize for running a little bit over in time, but there's a lot of slides and probably could have spoke for another hour and a half, but that kind of concludes the presentation. I don't know if we've got a couple minutes for a couple questions. Thanks everyone.
Trevor, there's probably time for just one question. Could you point on to what are the biggest roadblocks on the project at the perspective of bringing these materials into the market, and what are the policies need to be put in place for us to be able to do that?
Great question. I think twofold. I believe that you know, actually, let's stick to one. The biggest issue for mining in the province of Ontario is infrastructure, and ensuring that the infrastructure is in place for resources in the province in order for mining to take place and be done efficiently, cost effectively, so that the province, the communities, the northern communities can realize the benefits of high quality resource such as ours. We're very fortunate in our corridor, which is the most western corridor in the province, heading into just the tip of the far north. So we're essentially, as the crow flies, about 150 kilometers north of Red Lake. We're fortunate in the fact that the Wate Power Project, the high voltage transmission line, is currently under construction and expected to be accomplished in the by the end of 2023. In fact, that transmission line actually runs about 4 kilometers away from what is referenced as the Electric Avenue, where our project resides with North America's premium lithium assets. Behind that is the Barons Lake. Currently, there's an engineering group based out of Thunder Bay that's performing the engineering for a bridge across the Barons. So essentially, the corridor has been established for infrastructure, but we need to see beyond a construction road for the power project just to be upgraded to a suitable all-season road that can be counted on for our project. Our project is really essential, we believe, for the province to get into the battery business. So it's important for governments to utilize current activities and leverage that to make sure that a project such as ours sees the road access that's suitable to support the size of operation that we're looking at.
Right. Thank you so much, Trevor. And also thank you for our guests for holding on to the very end. Trevor, I just want to take this moment to thank you and the team at Frontier. Thank you and Bora Ugogal in particular. You know what, you're so right. You know what, you have a great asset. You know, you have the right team, and the timing is definitely now. And I think, you know, that infrastructure component is going to see us all through to a place where we can put in our hands and made in Ontario cell.
Charles, one last point is also the research and development. So the support to continue on the advancement of technology and the opportunity to take our good northern know-how with top quality resources. So that's the second part that's absolutely essential for Ontario to get into the game properly at a cost-effective basis. So thank you, Charles. Sorry for that interruption.
No, not a problem at all. You know what, we must leverage our assets here in order to be competitive globally. So thank you so much for that. Again, to our guests, this presentation will be available via a YouTube link, so you can watch it over and over again. And also, any questions that we did not answer for you here, we'll package some of those answers for you as well and make them available. So everybody have a good afternoon, and we look forward to seeing you again. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you, Trevor and Bora.